The Earth is full, mostly in regards to population increasing exponentially. This means there will be more demands of goods. We need to accommodate all these people in order to have sufficient amount of resources to support them. The Earth is only going to get fuller. Because of this, we need to be wary of the impact this will have on the environment.
Most people are well aware of the significant increases in CO2 emissions over the past 100 years. These CO2 emissions have obviously been linked to the raising of Earth's annual temperatures, deglaciation, and other consequences that have still not come to fruition. The simple statement that the Earth is full clearly paints a picture that the ever-growing demand for resources, living space, and increased economic and sociological growth will continue to grow at an exponential rate. One aspect of climate change that has only recently been addressed in the past decade is the changing of atmospheric and oceanic concentrations of O2 and how this affects the planet. In a report published by the IPCC in 2013, results collected from models addressing the deoxygenation of coastal and open oceans. These models subsequently found from 1900 to 2100 the levels of dissolved oxygen in the oceans will decrease on an average by a factor of 4.36%. Models have indicated that if this trend continues, ocean dead zones will become ever more frequent and large. This may not seem like a lot, but such a change in oxygen levels will heavily strain ocean ecosystems and cause effects not yet fully understood in the biogeochemical cycles. In effect, this will lessen the productivity potential of oceans as a food source for humans. And as we all know by now, as Earth's population increases, our dependence on the sea as a food source will continue to grow. Now moving on to land. Large decreases in atmospheric O2 have been recorded since 2003, and the implications posed by this are little understood. A team of researchers led by Francisco Valentino at the University of Bern found a decreased trend of around 6.5 to 9.5 parts per million a year of O2 concentrations decreasing in the atmosphere. Relatively speaking, these are small decreases. Looking back in geological time, however, O2 concentrations have had a significant effect on which organisms can live and thrive at a given time. Today, as deforestation continues at an unsustainable rate and environmental degradation occurs by the result of continued urbanization and industrial farming, large O2 sinks are forming. These O2 sinks will continue to lower the O2 concentrations of the atmosphere, inherently imposing reactions that are not yet fully understood and anticipated. In conclusion, as human populations grow and our demands of the Earth expand, our ever overburdened Earth will continue to be strained. We continue to change the physical and chemical compositions of complex systems around us without fully understanding the consequences that could occur from them. Our mentality of only looking at our rising CO2 levels is important, but it must also be looked at in the context of other vital compounds and systems that keep us and everything else on Earth alive.
The use and mining of the metal cobalt is a controversial subject. There are two main types of cobalt: the metal, which is non-radioactive and made in nature, and there is cobalt-60, which is radioactive and man-made. Cobalt-60 is used mainly for radiotherapy in hospitals, is used in industrial applications, and the sterilization of spices in various foods. Cobalt metal is used in various types of electronics and tools. If cobalt is not recycled properly, it can cause millions of dollars in lost property and cleanup costs in scrap metal factories. It does not, however, contaminate the environment because cobalt-60 has a half-life of 5.7 years and turns into non-radioactive nickel. Where most of the controversy stems from is how cobalt is obtained through mining. It is mined mainly in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The reason it is so controversial is the mining is done by artisanal miners. These miners work using hand tools, get paid next to nothing for the metals that they mine. These miners are also subject to physical abuse from mine police or private security guards. The mining in this country is a large reason for deforestation in the area. Even though there are good reasons for having this metal, the amount of controversy and turmoil behind mining of cobalt might not be worth it.
Population growth brings us to use more natural resources instead of conserving them. Oil, an example, its demand has been increasing since 1980s. According to the Natural Energy Research, the United States consumes more energy from the petroleum than from any other energy resource. In 2013, total U.S. petroleum consumption was 18.9 million barrels per day, or 36% of all the energy consumption. Oil has diverse possibility to improve our lives better and can be applied into all systems, basically transportation to the construction of cities. It is one of major resources that human relies on. However, economic footprint is already beyond the natural resource capacity, and they will be gone in 40 years. There are so less things if people use all the oil. People should farm and hunt, but oil exploration and production already deforested nearby area. The Rainforest Action Network found that Ecuador alone spilled 70 million gallons of crude oil, abandoned hundreds of online toxic waste ponds, and constructed oil roads that opened more than 2.5 million acres of the forest to the colonization. As a result, Ecuador's rainforests are being cut down by oil companies and settlers at a rate of approximately 340,000 hectares a year. Ecuadorian officials estimate that ruptures to the major pipeline alone have discharged more than 16.8 million gallons of oil into Amazon over the past 18 years. 40 years later, with this process, what will remain after that? So, in conclusion, what humans behave is to look forward and realize how people are destroying Earth and people themselves. Otherwise, people should challenge surviving from the remaining resources that they have destroyed for decades.
One thing the world will need more of as population of the world increases is food. We will need to accommodate more agricultural land in order to support larger population. You may think that because there is an increased movement of urbanization, there will be an increase of space for agricultural land. But we also need to take into consideration that cities will grow, and even if there will be a relatively large portion of land to grow crops on, that land will be managed by fewer people. This means that farmers will be responsible for a larger portion of land. As individuals, these farmers cannot afford to lose their crop to any unforeseen circumstances, so they add more fertilizer and more pesticides to preserve their crop. Though with an excess amount of fertilizer and pesticides, there is also an increased amount of runoff, which immediately affects the surrounding ecosystem. This gives an unfair advantage to some plants and destroys others. Though there are regulations put in place, only allowing farmers to use certain amount of fertilizers and making sure the pesticides are not too harmful, we are also going to need more production of crop. And at some point there will have to be a prioritization of production rather than preserving the environment. On an international level, one of the food products that has caused increasingly more damage to the environment has been palm tree oil. This is a product that is commonly found in baked goods. This means more land is required to grow palm trees, causing deforestation in rainforests in Malaysia and Indonesia. This not only affects the local biodiversity, destroying the shelters of animals like orangutans, but it also impacts the absorption of CO2. While rainforests absorb 2.6 tons of CO2 per acre per year, palm trees can only compensate for a fraction of that number, causing a carbon debt that would take years to compensate for. The world is full, but only in our eyesight. In North America, generally speaking, everyone's fridge and pantry is full. We don't notice beyond at the impact we have on the environment. That really, because of our expectations, we are draining the world, draining it of biodiversity, of plants and wildlife, causing endangered species and deforestation. Oh, it's still recording.